Our mission: Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and allow for open dialogue. Attendance today at this meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. However, these Zoom meetings are helpful to parents all around the world, and they are posted on YouTube so that affiliate members who are not able to attend this meeting live can also watch. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally.
Thank you so much. And so let me just say, this is the first time. Oh, I see a few people have written their names, where they're from, and if they are an affiliate leader, caring listener, or a board member. If you haven't done so, please do so that we can recognize you and see that you're here. And I'm going to just briefly introduce these three absolutely wonderful people. Casey has already presented his first book to us, and obviously Paola and Conrado have spoken to us as well. Casey Gauntt is a retired attorney and former senior executive of a major San Diego real estate company, as well as a shining light dad, a father of Jimmy, and the author of Suffering is the Only Honest Work, a memoir of love, loss, and discovery, and of When the Veil Comes Down. He lives in Solana Beach, California, with his wife, Hillary. Paola and Conrado Leslie are caring listeners for Helping Parents Heal. Their only child, Nicolas, was a victim of a terrorist attack in France on July 14th, 2016. He was 20 and a student at UC Berkeley. Nicolas was the greatest joy in their lives. They currently live in Hawaii. Nicolas continues to be an enormous part of their lives. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming Casey Gauntt.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Irene. It's such a pleasure to be back to talk with you all again. And tonight we're going to talk about my new book, When the Veil Comes Down, that we got over the finish line in early March and is available on Amazon. I'd like to open this up by reading the introduction, which is a quote. It's one of my favorite quotes from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and it really sets the tone, and I think conveys one of the big messages of the book. Here it is. The most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of the depths. These persons have an appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of life that fills them with compassion, gentleness, and a deep loving concern. Beautiful people do not just happen. I think you'd agree with me that Elizabeth and Irene are beautiful people. We're surrounded tonight by beautiful people. But I must say, two of the most beautiful people I know and have had the privilege to meet and get to know are Conrad and Paola Leslie. And I'd like for Conrad and Paola just to briefly tell us a little bit about yourselves and a little more about Nicolas, your son. Unmute, Conrad.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Casey. Those beautiful words. Yes, you know, we were just this beautiful family that we had only one child and everything was around him. And we just had this life almost like a fairy tale. It was almost unreal. And then just Nicolas went to France to study abroad. And he was walking down the promenade on Bastille Day, looking at the fireworks. And this man went and used a truck as a weapon of mass destruction and to basically run over a bunch of people, and 86 people transitioned that day. And we went through almost every chapter of Casey's book. You know, we went through, you know, the darkest night of our souls and seeing that pain that we had. And then slowly we started connecting with him because we had no recollection. We had no idea what to do. You know, I was an engineer. Life for me was very simple. It was, you know, we lived in a rock and we went around the sun every year, and that was it. Some people would get so many years, other people's not. And then everything started happening. And in Casey's book is like when the veil comes down, we really got to experience it, and it's really changed our life. And we realized that if we are here in a spiritual journey to kind of experience this world and this life as physical beings, we were able to experience the highest of highs, you know, being with our son, and the lows of lows, you know, being without him. And that gave us this growth and this ability to be empathic to other people and to take our life really to the next level.
Thank you. And we're going to talk about some of the things that our kids do for us and show us and help us with. But first, I'd like to tell you a little story about how I met Conrad and Paola. Because it reminds me of one of my favorite introductions to an episode on a TV series that only ran for one season. It's called Touch. It starred Kiefer Sutherland, and I was really very upset that it was only one season because it was so good. But this episode opened with, if 2 points are destined to touch, the universe will always find a way to make the connection. And I truly believe that. In our case, I knew what happened to, I didn't know Conrad and Paola, although they lived just a few miles away from us in Del Mar. And of course, the terrorist attack and the tragedy that befell, you know, all those people, including Nicolas, was major news, and read about it in the paper, as I'm sure many of you did. And it was a big story in the San Diego papers because a local young man was involved and was killed. So at the time, I had started and co-founded a fraternity of dads that we actually began in 2013. And so I made a mental note to myself that at some point I need to reach out to Conrad. And it was about 8 months or 9 months later. We're now in May of 2017. And there was another article that appeared in the Union Tribune. And this one was about the foundation and the fund that Conrad and Paola had set up at UC Berkeley in memory and honor of Nicolas. And the fund was to provide funds to college students at Berkeley that wanted to study abroad. And I thought, oh my God, what a noble thing to do. I mean, Nick was studying abroad in Nice, and that's where, you know, he was killed. And now they're not going to back away from that. They knew this was an important thing to do for Nicolas, and an important thing to do for other students. And I just thought, wow. So I cut the article out and thinking, I'm gonna reach out this time. And I put it on my desk. And it was about a day later, my wife Hillary goes by the desk and sees the article. I think what caught her eye was there was this beautiful photo of Nicolas at the top of Haleakala Crater in Maui, which is one of our favorite spots. Hillary and I in 1971, we camped out in Haleakala for 4 days and nights. I mean, it's just it's a really spiritual, amazing place. So Hillary reads the article and she tracks me down and she goes, Casey, we've got to give Nicolas a scholarship. It was this was going on at the same time that we were making decisions as to who we were going to award scholarships at Torrey Pines High School. Right after Jimmy died, a fund was established, and starting in 2009, the year after he died, we began to award scholarships to outstanding seniors who were of financial need, but also had an interest in pursuing the arts and theater or writing, which Jimmy was all about. And so Hillary said, we got to give Nick a scholarship. And so I called the foundation that runs the awards and scholarships. And they said, yeah, that'd be great. So we decided to award Nicolas a posthumous $8,000 scholarship. And through a mutual contact or connection, we got word of this to Conrad and Paola, who were overwhelmed. But also the synchronicity of it is they were coming up on a deadline where if they hadn't raised a certain minimum amount of funds for Nick's fund at Berkeley, they wouldn't achieve endowment. And our $8,000 scholarship put them over the hump. So they got the fund endowed. And that's how we met. And I think from that point on, we began to communicate a lot. At that point, I was 8 years ahead of them on this road. Our son, Jimmy, was accidentally struck and killed by an automobile. He was 24 years old, walking home from a party. So I had the benefit of 8 years, and I tried to, share some of what we had learned, including all of these things that Jimmy was showing us and the help he was giving us from the other side to help us with our healing. And I was just so, I was so honored to be able to, to talk with them and share stories. And then I think it was it 2018 where we came to Hawaii, and we by this time they had moved to Oahu, Kaneohe Bay, and Hillary and I were coming over there to go to a friend's birthday party, but we got to have a really nice lunch with Conrad and Paola and Paola's family, who had just come in from Italy. We had and it was an Italian lunch. It goes on for 5 hours. And Conrad and Paola were, they were serving as interpreters, throughout most of the lunch, because, some of Paola's family members could only speak Italian. Anyway, it was just delightful. But I have to tell you, what really warmed my heart was when Nicolas began to really help them in a demonstrable way. In our book, the veil, when the veil comes down, we share a lot of stories about other parents who have received significant amounts of help from their children. And we know they work hard to do that. And many of you have received these messages and these reach outs from your children. And it's so incredibly beautiful. And one of the chapters that is in the book is called Gifts from Nick. And it's written by Conrad and Paola. And I was so honored that they let me include this in the book. And I was hoping that maybe they might be able to share one of the gifts from Nick that's in the book. So if you would.
Absolutely. You know, we thought about it, and I think we like to share one gift. And I call a gift almost a combination, because, you know, there's signs and we get these signs and they're beautiful, but something even deeper to the next level is the message that comes with it. And when I get a sign and a message, I call that a gift. And I think one of the most beautiful ones that really helped turn our life around. And like I said, we've had a lot of help, you know, throughout our journey, but this one really stands up, and we call it the Rock of Joy. And it really started with a dream, I guess a lucid visitation from Nicolas to Paola.
Yes, was 2 years and Nicolas transitioned, and I was really in a dark place, and I really didn't want to to keep going, living here. And then one night Nicolas came to me in a dream visitation, and when I saw him in this dream visitation, he looked so solid. It was just the same age when he went away, and it was so peaceful and smiling. And so I went towards him, and I told right away to him, Nicolas, I wanted to go where you are. And then just look at me, and he put his forehead, and, you know, touched my forehead, and he looked into my eyes, and there was so much love and compassion that was coming from him. And then he just gave me this message, and he said, Mom, you can't. You still have to live your life and enjoy your adventures. And it was just like an instruction they gave to me, just like, you know, and I woke up and I told right away to Conrado.
Well, having heard that, it's the clue that I needed, because before, you know, we used to travel a lot as a family, and that was what really turned, you know, I mean, it was the big thing that we did. You know, we didn't, you know, get into fancy cars, jewelry, or anything. We just like to travel. And to have the loss of losing our child was tremendous. But then on top, to see my wife not wanting to live, you know, she just basically wanted to be with him, you know. And all of a sudden I realized, I go, well, if Nicolas told her to enjoy our adventures, maybe we got to take an adventure. So I booked a trip to New Zealand. We found this cheap ticket for like $600 round trip. And we went there without any plans, you know, just immediately after this thing happened. And when we got there, it wasn't like what, you know, we did it, but it wasn't like what we envisioned, you know, where there was no planning. It was a little bit of stressful situations. And one of my first nights, I also had a dream visitation of Nicolas, where I was in this beautiful house overlooking the ocean, and I could see the waves. And all of a sudden it hit me. I go, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. This is not my world. I must be somewhere else, because the waves were like too perfect. Everything was like too perfect. And I just realized, I said, you know what? I don't belong. This is not my reality. And then Nicolas walked into the room, and I said, there it is. And I said, you know what? I don't care who's waiting. I didn't even think about my wife. I said, I'm not leaving. I know I don't belong here, but I'm going to stay here with all my might. And I just wager to see who's going to force me back, because I'm not going back. And I held them tight in my hands, in my arms. And I was just feeling all this love and this bliss. And like, if I was there with him, and then all of a sudden as hard as I could squeeze him, he slipped through my hands. And as he walked away, he smiled and telepathically said, you know, he told me 3 things, because I asked him, I go, Nick, don't go away. Is there anything you got to tell me? Is there anything I should know? And he said 3 things. He said, stay with mom, move forward, and find joy in life. And I immediately woke up, and these were tremendous messages for me because we were having problems. We're grieving differently. We're separating, fighting as a couple, we weren't moving forward. And this whole concept of finding joy, I mean, how do you really find joy after, such a loss? Well, I woke up, I told Paola, and Paola was really good at documenting these things, and she wrote it down. And then the next day we went out and we experienced this. We went to this beautiful nature place called the Blue Pools, where two rivers meet, and the water's this incredible deep blue. It's so beautiful. It was so beautiful that we were in tears just looking at it. And we were in tears because we realized that we'll never be able to share it with Nicolas. And, so it kind of lost some of the beauty of it, And at that moment, Paola started crying, and I could just feel how this thing was going. I go, oh my God, this is not good. We're going to go into one of these, deep, things. And I didn't think it was the right thing. And I said, Paola, listen, we believe in Nicolas. He's sending us messages, and if we really are going to be honest to ourselves to follow the signs and follow the message, we got to listen to what he said. And he said, find joy in life again. We have to find joy. And as soon as I said that, Paola goes, yes, we have to find joy. And as soon as she said that, she looked down in the ground and she found this rock that was glistening in the sun that had the letter J growing out of crystals with a circle around it. And I have it here so you guys can see it. Let me see. Hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully you guys will get a zoom in here, but it's just incredible. And for us, it was I guess it was life-changing because, I guess finding joy for a parent that has lost a child or has gone through any kind of tragedy is something that's so elusive. It's something that you almost feel like you don't deserve. You feel like this disgrace has happened to you, and it really put us in a journey towards that. And knowing that our son is sending us messages. It's knowing that he's kind of lighting up the road and kind of showing us, and when we need it the most, just when we were just about to slip, because it was a good trip and stuff, and we were just about to go into visit this dark side, he's like, find joy again. And joy doesn't necessarily mean go out there and, champagne. But joy is like I guess for me, it's like almost like the opposite of sadness, to find joy. Like when your child is born, you call them a bundle of joy. So in a way, you're kind of looking for joy. So, that really helped us. And it was just one of the many signs that Casey has talked about from the different families and stuff, how these signs and messages, from the other side of the veil are helping parents heal.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Conrad and Paola. I love that story. And when we visited them in Hawaii, I got to see the Rock of Joy up close and personal, and it's pretty mind blowing. It's so incredible. And it, as Conrad said, it seems almost impossible in those early days, weeks, months, even years after our children have transitioned that we'll ever find joy. I remember the first day after Jimmy died, we were on a walk with my daughter and Hillary. We just needed to clear our heads. We have a lagoon next to where we live, and just had to get out of the hurricane for a little bit. And it was Hillary that said, she really threw the sword down, and she said, we will not let his death take us down, because that would make Jimmy so unhappy, and we are not going to make him unhappy. And we really tried to live and have tried to live that way. Because as Conrad said, Nicolas has told them, as Jimmy has told us, as you've heard and received messages, they want us to be happy. not giggling, as Conrad said, or, but they do want us to get better. They want us to be able to move forward. And I think one of the things, in addition, that one of the major things we focus on in this book. Oh, I saw somebody asked a question, what's a veil? And what does that mean? And that's a good question. The veil, I think, the way I think of it is, many of us believe or are taught that there is something that separates us from this side of life in our bodies, and the other side when you leave your body. And there's this thing that you can't see through, or you're told you can't see through it, or you can't cross through it. And so that's what it's like a curtain, okay, that separates the two sides. And I'll talk a little more about what I mean by when the veil comes down. I'll mention already right now, I don't believe there isn't a veil. There is nothing that separates us from our loved ones. We are always connected with them. We have shared in the book some stories where from other parents with multiple witnesses, where the loved ones have shown up in body to visit and to bring messages and healing and love. And we've included some other stories where those of us here are connecting with our loved ones in mind-boggling, amazing ways, which tells me there isn't a veil. There is no separation. It's only our inability to see. I think it was back in the 1400s when the Spaniards, Conrad's family, where ancestors were coming to the Caribbean and the islands there in their sailing ships, and many of the Spaniards kept journals, and in their journals they wrote about how the native Americans couldn't see their ships. And the reason was they couldn't imagine such things existed. And I think that's very true for us. We have beautiful minds that can do amazing things. We can build incredible machines. We can create fantastic, wondrous pieces of art, music, things like that. But our brains are only so big. And they also say, they being whoever they are, the scientists, that we only use about 5% of our brain. So what if we could expand the use of our brain? And what if we could just raise our level of awareness and consciousness to get to a point where we're seeing more and we're experiencing more? And I think one of the ways we get there, and this is kind of covered in several chapters in the book, but one of the ways we get to this higher level of awareness is when we, the parents, the siblings, when we can get to a point in our healing where we can begin to help others. I think that is key. I think that's a very critical part of how we increase our awareness, because what I've learned and I'm going to have Conrad and Paola also speak to this. Helping others with their healing, people we know, people we don't know. That form of healing and helping others heal, I equate with connection. When we are able to call up, reach out to somebody, and give them a hand in their darkest moments, and say and tell them, look, let me listen to you, let me help you, let me share some things that we've learned. A connection is formed, a connection at a very deep level. And you've all felt it when you make that connection. There's an energy that's released. And what I talk about in the book is we we're so desperate to receive messages and signs from our loved ones. But if we don't do something with those, if we just keep them to ourselves and we don't share them with others, and we don't then use those to help others, then we're really missing the mark, and we're missing that opportunity to connect. And what I've also learned over the past 12 and a half years is the more we help others, the more we make these deep connections with others on profound levels, and helping people through one of the most horrible things that there could ever be. When we do that, we get more. We are rewarded. We are being watched. Our loved ones are watching us. They're watching what we do and how we're using these things that we're receiving. And when they see us use these things in a positive way, in an impactful way, we get more. They come closer to the veil to help us. And one of the chapters in the book, it's actually the last chapter, and it's called The Choice We Make, because it is a choice. We choose. We choose how we're going to proceed with our life. We can be a victim. We can allow ourselves to withdraw into ourselves and suffer with ourselves, or we can do something else. We can choose to live. Tom Zuber writes about that in Permission to Mourn, great book, by the way. We can choose to live. And one of the things we can do is choose to help others. I want to read just that particular chapter opens with a quote from one of my favorite books, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And here's what he said: "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude to any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." For those of you who haven't read the book, Viktor Frankl spent 5 years in the Nazi concentration camps during World War II. Most of his family members, including his first wife, were executed or died from starvation or disease in the concentration camps. And Viktor Frankl went on to become one of the world's most famous psychiatrists, wrote many, many books, helped many, many people with his knowledge and his healing. And he chose, and he writes about in his book, he had a choice to make. He chose to live. And in that chapter, we talk about and feature other parents who have made that choice, the choice to live and to help others. And Conrad and Paola are two of the most shining examples of what Viktor Frankl was talking about and what we talked about at the beginning of the book about beautiful people. They don't just happen. They go through a metamorphosis. They go through different changes of skin and body types and mental stages. And I've watched them. You know, I had the privilege of watching them go through these changes. So what I wanted to ask Conrad and Paola to speak about, if they would, or speak to, is how did you get to a point? Because I think a lot of us are very interested in this. How did you get to a point where you felt comfortable that you could begin to help others with healing? And then I'd like you to just speak a little bit about some of the things that you do to help others.
Sure. You know, first of all, I think it's one of my favorite chapters of the book. I remember when you sent me the draft, you sent me also the copy of the book by Viktor Frankl, and it was the most intense thing I ever read about how some people could go through this kind of suffering and come out. And I guess for us, it's like what you said about how you could go through life as a victim, but it started for me not to be a victim, but not to be a cynic. I realized it was so easy for me to slip and just become a cynic. Like, well, God abandoned us, you know, and the world sucks and Berkeley sucks. Why do they do this in this day? There was all these terrorist attacks in France. So I started thinking like that. I said, no, I do not want to be that guy. So that was the first thing. And then the second step was the choice I had to make, or we had to make, of, I guess, hate over love. And I think that was like the hard one, because it was so easy to have anger and hate, you know, for the police in France that didn't stop them, you know, and for the school who did this, you know, at that time, and for the guy who did that, you know, praising God all the way down the street, praising God. And he's taking people's lives like they were nothing. So I personally had a lot of hate in my heart. And then I just realized that hate was an emotion just like love, but I was converting some of my love that I had for my son, and I was converting that to hate. And that guy was still part of my life. So I was like feeding him, keeping him alive, you know, even though he was, you know, the police killed him right on the spot, but I was like still, you know, keeping him alive still because of my hate, you know, and my anger. And then all of a sudden I just realized, well, number one, I'm cutting this guy off. I'm not converting, you know, love, which is like a currency, from like dollars to euros so I could pay this guy in hate. I'm going to keep it all in one currency, love, and send it to my son, period. The guy's been cut off. And for me as an engineer, I kind of visualize this like an irrigation pipe that's feeding two crops, my son's field and this guy's field. And I said, wait, where am I irrigating this guy's field? And shut it off. And then, you know, so after I kind of went through that whole thing, and not to be a cynic and to accept love, then embrace what made Nicolas happy. And we realized that he had the best time of his life during that study abroad. He loved Berkeley and stuff. And I said, you know, we gave Nicolas everything he wanted. So what about all these other kids that don't get a chance? They'll go study abroad, they'll get scholarships, but just space for your ticket and your dorm, and you got to stay in. You can't go out and have a cafe. You can't have a drink with like a local, have a date or do whatever. So I thought that was really important. And slowly like that, we opened up our hearts. And I think it really opened up a lot, when we joined Helping Parents Heal, to be able to hear other parents and work with other parents, and then realizing that, we weren't as ambitious as you, Casey. You've written 2 books and you reached out to help us, and you actually go out of your way. For us, it was more like people would come into our life, and then we would do something to help them, because our motto was one consciousness at a time. You reach out to many people, we are just like happy one at a time. And then I think a big breakthrough for us too was, when we moved to Hawaii and we joined Access Surf, and just seeing the love that, of parents. And Access Surf, we help people with, physical and cognitive disabilities. You learn, go into the water, some float, some surf, just have fun in the water. And to be able to see the love of a parent that has a child with special needs, and see that kid smile, and you see that parent, and I'm talking about, I get my hair stands up, why they call it chicken skin, like goose pimples, just to talk about it, to see that love, or to see somebody else that was just born with that tragedy all his life, with not being able to walk or something, and to see them crawl, basically being so proud, saying, no, you know what, just carry my board, Conrad. I'll make it to the water. That's all I need. You just help me out. You just paddle next to me, make sure, nothing happens. And they'll just basically crawl out there, and to see that strength just kind of like fortified us, kind of like recharged us with love, to see the love of the volunteers and the dedication of the participants. And none of the participants are victims. They're all out there charging. I mean, I'm talking charging out there. And then that love, we were able to transform that and pass that same love to other projects that we do with, like, I like to speak in some of the inner city schools, and talk to these kids, some of these high school kids, that for them, like, one little thing for us that we might think it's little, for them it's like the big thing. And there's so many suicides, especially with this group, Helping Parents Heal. There's a lot of parents that lost their kids like that. And I just want to show other children and other young adults that it's not the end of the world if you fail the class. It's not the end of the world if you break up. And if we were able to undergo and come out of the other side, and we're not completely out yet, it's a long journey. And I'm glad I have such mentors and brothers like Casey ahead of me, kind of showing me what's up ahead, but the fact that we are where we are right now, it shows them that there is, that, hey, what, maybe it's not that big of a deal. And I emphasize that if something's not a problem in 6 months from now, like somebody did something and you think your parents are going to get angry or whatever, it's not going to be a big problem. And I just try to reach out to them to show them the value of life, and I think, but it was a gradual path, and how we got there was because, number one, of the love that we received, and the decisions that we made, and those decisions were like primary, accept love over hate, and then be able to continue being recharged by seeing that love around us, that ohana of people, participants, and then being able to take that energy and share with something else to help other people. So it was like a gradual and a team effort, if I must say.
And I think you'd probably agree, right, that it brings you joy.
It brings us the biggest joy. I mean, it kind of not only brings us personal joy, because I always feel that Nicolas is smiling on us, saying, "Yeah, Dad, you did the right thing." Yeah. And I just feel like, that we're not only giving ourselves joy, but we give other people's joy. And I think that when we have joy, I feel that our son gets charged up. He gets like, I don't know, like bonus points or something, like his light, and it just helps him in his growth wherever he's at. And,
It is. It's beautiful. I want to mention one thing that I'm going to, I think Irene or Elizabeth might have some questions for me, but one of the other things that we focus on in the book, and it's, I think you can hear and appreciate that this book is about helping. It's helping others. And it's the help we receive from our loved ones who are on that other side of the imagined veil. The help that we hopefully can begin to give to others here who are hurting with their healing. But one of the things that I discovered over the last 12 and a half years was we can help our loved ones on the other side with their healing. Mm-hmm. Healing works both ways.
Yes.
Right. And I learned that primary example was with my father. My father died by suicide when I was 20 years old in 1970. And as I've said before, and I've written about before, I was so angry with my father that I did everything I could to forget about him. I wanted to bury his memory. I wouldn't talk about him. I would try not to think about him. And then when our son died in 2008, not only was I now forced to confront the grief of losing our son, but my dad came kind of front and center as well. I didn't do a very good job of burying his memory, and it was overwhelming, to say the least. But I write about in the first book and mention it here. My dad and Jimmy rescued me 3 months after Jimmy's death, and it came in the form of a letter that my father had written me in 1968, 2 years before he died, but it was a letter I never received. And he wrote in the letter to me, I didn't receive it until 3 months after Jimmy died. It came from a woman who held on to it for 40 years. 40 years. In the letter, my dad writes to me about a depression in his youth. He writes about a fanatical religious mother he couldn't reason with. He writes about how he was changed by World War II and all of the horrific things he saw and did. He was talking to me man to man. And so one of the things that and the letter, by the way, arrived in my hands on the day that would be Jimmy's 25th birthday. It arrived on his birthday. And my dad closed that letter with this. He said, "Anytime you want me, I'll be around because I care more than you'll ever know. My son, all love, Dad." My dad knew that day, Jimmy's birthday, the first birthday since his death, would be one of the hardest days of my life. And my dad showed up for me like he promised he would. Yes. In a letter he wrote 40 years earlier. Now, you try and wrap your head around that. But what it showed me is, hey, we're getting all this help. You know, my dad waited 40 years to help me. But then I was compelled to go find out more about him. What is this depression he's talking about? What is this fanatical religious? I didn't know any of these things. So I began to really search my dad's story and find out what happened to him. And I wrote the story and shared it with family and friends. And we began, my family began to talk about my father, something we hadn't done in 40 years. We began to talk about his suicide. We began to shine light on him. And I felt I was helping my dad. I shared this story about this letter. I was bragging about my father because of all of the incredible things he did during the war, and just what a successful businessman he was, and all the good things. Trying to focus, like Conrad and Paola are talking about, focusing on the good things, the good parts of his life, not his suicide. That was horrible, but the good things about his life. And I felt I was helping him, but a rabbi reached out to me 3 years ago, out of the blue. She had just found out that Jimmy had died. This is 10 years after Jimmy dies. She met him one time in Poland at Auschwitz-Birkenau. That's another story. But anyway, she had also heard about this story of the letter. And she pointed out to me, she goes, healing works both ways. Even traumatic death can yield to a healing and mending of relationships that extends past our lifetimes and across generations. She was telling me we can help others on the other side with their healing. And my dad needed it. My dad was stuck. I could tell. And in the book, in the chapter called When the Veil Comes Down, there's a reading that I received in February of 2020 from a wonderful medium. Her name's Chris Lynn from Colorado. It was a phone reading. And my dad came through in that reading, and he said, "I'm so grateful, son. You helped me heal. You gave me my heart back. And I'm so grateful." And that just was like a light bulb that went off for me, to think that, these relationships that we thought broken were not as strong as we would have liked with our loved ones. I thought there was nothing I could do about it, but that's not true. We always have a relationship with them. Tom Zuber writes about that in his book. We always have a relationship with those we love. It's a choice of what we do to try and revive that relationship and embrace that relationship. And so that's why I wrote the book. That's why I pulled it together, because I wanted to get that out there, that there's all these different levels of healing. And the one where we can help our loved ones with their healing on the other side it was a mind opener and blower for me. And I'm going to chase that some more, and I'll write about that some more.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you, Casey. Thank you so much. I hope it's okay if I share with everyone that's here on the meeting that Casey is a proud grandpa for the third time just recently. He had baby granddaughter born, Sophia Grace, and you want to share with everyone what day she was born.
She was born March 27, and that's Nicolas's birthday. They share the same birthday. It never stops. It just never stops. And our
so
love
beautiful.
Never stop working, to let us know that. And I think I looked at that. And that was Nicolas and Jimmy telling me and Hillary and Conrad and Paola that they're watching, they're paying attention, and you'll never forget us, and I'll never forget Nicolas's birthday.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It really is. I also, if you would share with everyone, you have such a fabulous website, Write Me Something Beautiful. And oh my gosh, I think that's how I found you. There was an article about how many children do you have?
Right.
And that's how I found. But if you wanted to tell everyone, we only have a few minutes, but
Sure.
It has a wealth of information on it.
Yeah, it's the website is writemesomethingbeautiful.com. Those were the last words that Jimmy spoke to one of his best friends a few days before he died. He was talking. He had lunch with Eric, and Eric was also a budding writer, but he was struggling. And Jimmy just said, "Eric, just write me something beautiful and send it to me." And so that's the name of the website. And we put I post quite frequently on there things that we stumble across, share it, stories that are shared with us, and I also have what I call the tribe, which is it's basically a blind email list, and there's about 140 people on it. And although I sort of give sneak peeks at some of the things that may be going on our website, but also some things that I think are just more appropriate shared with an audience of people that who I know are going to get and want to hear what we're talking about. And so if any of you would like to send me your email address, my email address is Casey.Gauntt, 2 T's, #1 @gmail.com. And we can post this later too. Send me your email. I'm happy to add you to the list. And also one other thing I wanted to mention is for those of you who don't immediately go out and buy When the Veil Comes Down, and I know you probably already bought it during this call, but on June 3rd, for 5 days, I will be making the Kindle version of the book available for free. And I think Elizabeth and Irene will coordinate to send out a reminder of that when that window opens up. So I just wanted to mention that too.
We are so excited to have you speak to us. I am so emotional every time that I hear both you and Paola and Conrado speak. Not sad, emotional, just so happy. It makes me so happy to hear all three of you and to know that all three of you are experiencing joy. I absolutely love the title of your book, and I do agree with you that there is no veil, but it is wonderful to think that it is coming down, and that that all of us, I want everyone to know that what these three remarkable individuals are experiencing is something that all of us can experience. I am so grateful to be able to see this in action. But the most important thing about your whole message, Casey, is, and both you and Paola Conrado, is that helping others helps us even more than it does others.
Absolutely.
And I am just so grateful for you to show how important this is, that we all realize that we heal by healing others. And it's beautiful to hear it from you. And I'll make sure that we do put information on the 3rd of June about this. Casey was also interviewed by Irene Weinberg, and his interview will be coming out on the 2nd of June. So we'll be making sure to put that on the Helping Parents Heal website as well, so that you guys can listen to it. But in any case, it's time, and I just want to say we're going to have you guys all back again.
Absolutely, please. This is wonderful.
Love to.
So thank you for all of this. Thank you all for being here today. And I know that you're all unmuted, so you're welcome to say thank you and goodbye to all three of these wonderful guests.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
What a great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.